So sometimes I forget when I post these videos that these do go out to the masses that could somehow just kind of stumble upon them. Typically I do them just from a space of like, I feel like I'm talking to my community. And for a lot of you, you've been following the YouTube stuff for the last 12 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. Others of you already know I've been doing deals for 25 years, and you've just gotten to see the evolution and how we do the deals and all that. And a lot of you have actually helped do deals and done deals together, which is a lot of fun. So I forget that, I'm not just talking to my community, even though I'm really just creating the content for y'all. I'm not trying to grow out into a huge, like massive channel and what that requires, like targeting the average person who's scrolling YouTube, who most of them are looking for kind of like that next get rich quick idea to get excited about. And we just don't talk about any of that kind of stuff here. So, when I'm doing this, I'm really talking to a pretty small group of strategic thinkers, which is not 99% of people who are scrolling IG in their free time, every day. So, and most of the time, those are people who want to live and work outside of conventional thinking. So yesterday, I had a couple people who jumped in the comments like, nah, that's cap. No way you can buy a hedge fund. That's just impossible. So I was just like, who are you? Where did y'all come from? Like, I've already talked about this before. I talked about deals. It's just obvious that they were new, which is cool. But at the end of the day, listen, I'm not gonna argue with you or with anybody on the internet. I'm not here trying to prove anything to anybody, but I am happy to share. So I'm here to share. But that guy, I blocked them because there wasn't a question. It was just like, nope, he can't do that. Can't Doesn't work. Like impossible. It's like, I'm, it's okay. First of all, enjoy your life. That's totally cool. Don't watch this stuff. But why would I try to prove something I'm literally doing in front of the members of my Patreon that we literally do inside and have done inside of Actors Hoka? So, um, the other funny thing, I do wish I could block. There was one person that liked the comment, but I can't see who that person was. But I'm not. I'm like, dude, I'm quick to block you. Like I'm not trying to grow the channel. It's like if you're not interested in this stuff, adios. But for those of you who are and do want to learn, I do want to share this stuff. And so I realized, like, okay, I was talking kind of high level. I know some of you may be newer. And so I want to do a video breaking down specifically, step by step, so you can just see logically, okay, this is how this works. And I'll talk about an actual deal that we just closed the first portion of on Friday and how we are negotiating to get equity in a fund based off of that. Okay? Happy to do that for y'all. So let's start at the beginning. Let's say you're buying a business and it has some financial assets like we discussed in the last video. We've got the clients I just mentioned in Actors Hoka who actually just closed on Friday on a business like that fits that category called Financier Bridge Capital. And it's a business that has, some financial assets. So it'll soon be about $1 million in financial assets. Now, what do you do? The first objection I know from somebody who's looking at this is like, how am I ever going to even get in front of a fund manager? How am I going to get a fund manager to talk to me? Well, first of all, you're not talking to $1 billion funds. I made that clear. And based on the amount of the financial assets you have, you're going to target the fund based on that. So you've got the deal, you take those assets and you basically go to the hedge fund manager. In this case, if you've got a business with like $1 million, let's say, in financial assets, it's great to go after a small, low AUM, which is assets under management fund under 10 million, because that's going to have a big impact on like how we do this deal. And I think the other thing is like people just aren't familiar with this world. Like they don't know that there are thousands and thousands of these funds that are just small funds that are out there that are trying to grow their AUM. So you go to one of these small funds and you say, hey, I want to invest in your fund. Now, that gets to that first objection. Like, how could I ever get somebody to talk to me? Guess what's going to happen if you go to a fund manager and you tell them you want to invest in their fund? They're going to talk to you. Because nobody's going to turn away someone who says, "Hey, you're in the investment business. I want to invest." And that's just simple. Like that's just like, okay, let's break down how do you even get the foot in the door, which is the first question, right? So that is going to get you the foot in the door, and you're going to be able to talk to them. They'll get to know you, like what's your background, da, da, da. That just builds great contacts for the future. You know what they're doing. You may find deals that they're interested in investing in. Blah 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 blah. In the kind of financial instrument side of the deals that you're structuring. So they're at the end of that though, after they've been nice and all that, they're gonna ask you, yo, how much money are you trying to invest? And some may have minimums and that kind of thing. But and so they may mention that at the beginning. But they're gonna ask you, yo, okay, you seem cool, but how much money you got? And you would say in this scenario with the assets of the business that we're talking about, I want to invest $1 million. But here's the thing, instead of giving you cash and you going and buying financial instruments, I want to invest the financial instruments into the fund. You can run due diligence on the instruments, and if you like them, I'll invest them into the fund, just like an investor would. And obviously, that's going to increase your AUM. Now, there's some really cool things. When I'm doing these deals, I'm going to get a little bit of the LP and the GP, and it's like there's too much to get into how you do these deals, and it's really at the management and GP level that you get that 8 to 10x kind of exit we're talking about, but you also get kind of these liquid shares of the fund, which is also really cool. So I mean, when you get into stuff, it's just endless things that you can do. But the first thing is just even like being open. And this is the case with just every business ever, is that most people are doing things the conventional way. And if you're doing things the conventional way, it's just a lot more difficult because that's what everybody's doing. And it just is. It does make sense that people be like, oh, like you just can't do that. I remember, oh, this is so funny. I remember 25 years ago when I would tell people I was buying businesses, and I bought my first one in 1999. It's so funny, and this has just been like the story of my life, I guess, and that which just came to mind. So I bought this business. I was going to school in New York, moved back to Chattanooga, and at that point I was trying to buy other businesses. And I was at this event and I was telling one of my friends from high school's mom about like what I was doing, and I was buying business, da, da, da. And it was so funny, literally the same thing as that comment. You can't do that. And it just took me aback. It was like, what do you mean? Like, are you saying it's illegal? Like, what do you mean? And she's like, no, like, you can't do that. Like, you can't just buy a business. And it's like, well, I'm doing it. And she's like, no. And it is interesting. Like, there's some people that they've got this reality, and and it's not to rag on those people. If you've been brainwashed your whole life to say, no, this is how life works, this is how business works, this is how investing works. Even with this thing, like the really cool thing that we're not even getting into here. I'll do maybe a video later. So be sure to subscribe to do the YouTube thing. But it's like, instead of saving for retirement, you can literally just go buy a fund that has the amount of money that you need to retire on. And then take a fee off of that. Like they say, you should live off 4% of the money you save for retirement. So instead of saving for 40 years, which is absolutely ridiculous, and getting that, you can learn this stuff, which is another separate level of work, but it doesn't take 40 years. It just takes a lot more of an open mind than 99% of people are going to have. And you can buy a fund that you can take 4% of. And there's just or buy funds you take 2% of, and you buy double the amount of money. There's just endless things. So there are an endless number of cool things, which is why I just want you to get this first layer of this concept of these deals, because you like when it comes there you still want to buy businesses, you still want to do all the other stuff, and even in this strategy it requires you buying the business before you get into this. But when it comes to like wealth building, and especially like retirement, you can go and buy your nest egg. You can go and buy your retirement nest egg. So I'm not coming here telling you things that a ton of people are talking about. So I do understand when people hear it, it can be like, wait a minute, what in the world? And then I just jump right in. So the video yesterday, I realized like, oh, I just kind of jumped right in, like it's my community and we already been talking and all that kind of thing. And it's unfortunate that the people that are going to prejudge certain things are the people that need the most support, middle class, just like the Mr. Vest Cap guy. So what I do is I just try a lot of things, which is great because we just have so many deals that come through the different things. We have Action Hoco, we have people doing deals in the chair. And so as we're doing all these things, it gives me an opportunity like, oh, like let's try this on this deal. It's really cool. I had Ephraim who was doing a deal and he's like, hey, like this business has six figures in cash. I want to buy that cash and get a loan so that I don't pay up front for that cash. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Like here's how we can structure that. And so when I'm working with all these people, it's just like a lot of people don't think like, oh, like if I need money, I just go buy the business that has the money that I need. And I can go and get a loan that covers the money as well. And it's 100%. And shout out to Becky who just did her deal and got cash back at closing. So all this stuff, it's really not magic. It's just understanding. I think first of all, you gotta understand how to think beyond how and what you were taught to think. If that's how you're gonna live your life, it's like, oh, I'm just thinking like how and what is normal and the average person thinks and what I was taught to think, then you're gonna have what the average person has. And we're just in a time right now, which is one of the reasons that I'm trying to share a lot of this stuff, is that AI, all of conventional stuff is gone. Like I was just at an AI conference, man. It's exciting and terrifying. I think if you're not, and this sounds a little bad, but if you're not wealthy, you should be terrified. Just just being frank, and most people aren't, which sometimes ignorance is bliss. So like I mentioned, we're literally doing a deal like that right now inside of Acquisition Hoco. And so I'm gonna walk through that deal so you can kind of see how we're doing that deal. So we closed the deal on the FBC business. It's a little under $1 million in assets. So we're literally in talks right now with a fund to do a deal the way that I described. So you may be thinking, okay, it's like, why would they accept these financial instruments? Well, if they're trying, one of the things is like you're saving them a couple of steps. And this is just like buying a business. So I talk about, when you're buying a business, you need 100, we're looking at 100 deals, doing due diligence on 10, 20, buy, doing an offer on 5, and then you may buy 2. So I think the numbers are actually better even with this. But let's say you go out, it's not like you're talking to one fund and then you do that. You have 20 funds, you target those, you have those conversations. You get one that gets it, that wants to increase really wants to increase their AUM. And if they like the assets and there's a good ROI in the assets, they basically outsourced 2 levels of work to you. They've outsourced going and raising that capital, which they would have had to do. Then they would have had to do the work to raise the capital, and that costs like a lot of times money, but also just time. And then next, they got the money. They're still, especially if they got a preferred return, that money is costing them money until they find something to get a ROI. So now they've got to do the work, go through that process, find those potential deals, and then write a check for them. So with these, you're basically saying, hey, I'm saving you from raising the money. I'm saving you from having to go out and figure out the deal, saving you from the money that you're paying, especially if you've got a preferred return on that period of time, blah, blah, blah. So we instead are just using the assets kind of from a smart acquisition level to get equity in the fund itself and then in the management company as well. And we're doing those deals with no money down. So the deal that we're literally negotiating exactly right now, if you want to look at it, you can go to the Patreon. You can watch as we close that exact deal as a Chairman Club member. Shout out to the team from Chairman Club. I think we got 4 or 5 guys who are going to be helping and really behind the scenes working on that deal. So if you're still thinking there, if you're still sitting there and thinking what he just explained can't be real, then God bless you. This channel is not for you. But if this sparks something in you and you're like, man, your mind's opening and thinking, wait, maybe that's possible. This is cool. This is, even if it's not really about this strategy. It never am I coming here and even talking about saying like, hey, this is the exact strategy. Like every deal we do is a little bit different. And even this whole strategy in general is more about getting you to think differently of like, oh, I don't have to go, the whole thing with the chairman, like, oh, I can make money like I own a business and I don't have to own the business. That was one of my, years ago, just like huge transition after, over a decade of buying business, like, oh, like this is at least a different model, right? And again, it's not even saying like that's the right model. It's just like, here are all these different things and ways for you to just think outside the box. The first realization, and this is important as well. The first realization for me that I wasn't told the way the world works was 25 years ago buying my first business, right? Like literally, that was the transition point. That was the point where it was like, oh, like nobody's ever just told me that, I was studying, I was, poli-sci major, headed to law school, wanted to do that whole path. Just because like I looked at my options and that was the best of the options that I had been told by society, my parents, school, blah, blah, blah. And so for me to come across this deal randomly, just pure luck, and buy an income that was higher than what my friends got out of college making and buy it with no money down, it was just a paradigm shift of like, oh, wow, like what else are they lying about? Even if it's not an outright lie, like what else is a lie? What else is not true? And so the best thing that you can do, I think, man, the best thing you do in life is just questioning everything you think. Like if you think, oh no, like this doesn't work, like this isn't going to work for me, I can't like question those things. So it's not about this exact strategy. It's just like, oh, like especially if you're someone who thinks that this kind of stuff is cool, then you're definitely in the right place. And these are the kind of deals that we do in a chairman club. I think of it as using private equity as kind of a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. And this is definitely one of those examples where we inject undervalued assets into a high multiple vehicle. And then, like I said, we negotiate GP and LP ownership in the fund in this case, but it could just be anything. Now, the really cool thing is the goal of all this is just building wealth, and if you can build wealth on the back of paper that nobody else understands, using strategies that nobody else understands, doing things that other people will come and take time out of their day to come and say is impossible, then you're in the right place. Like if you like those kinds of things, then definitely would love to have those people as a subscriber. I don't post often, but when I do, it's because there's something that's worth sharing. None of this stuff is theory. And it's also just not fluff. It's just me coming with real deals, sharing as much as I can here because I want to save the best value, obviously, for the people that are paying to be a part of what we do. Now, so which does best point. If you do want to go deeper, you want to see the whole process, you want to watch the negotiation, you want to see access like the real time behind the scenes of this stuff, and have someone assigned to you to help you do your deals, then definitely join the Patreon. I'll try to keep y'all posted on some of the things that we're doing. We got a lot of stuff. I do appreciate the faithful watchers who've been around for a while, who've been behind the scenes, just making things happen. And so I thank y'all for watching. Thanks for watching this video. This channel is just, it's not for everyone for a lot of reasons. One is it's for the people who do kind of want to play in silence in a time when everyone thinks the only way to make money is to be Instagram famous. Most of our strategies involve the opposite. Being not like the goal is not that. And winning in style and blocking people that you don't like. So I do want to do a video on buying your nest egg. So maybe we'll do that soon. Otherwise, I'll see y'all. Excited to share more the deep training that's coming on Monday for the chairman folks, man. Anyways, hope y'all are having an amazing weekend. Let's go get some work done, though. Have a great one, guys.